protesters are fast-moving.
Unlike other big rallies,
A bit earlier at about 7 a.m., a group from the Coast Guard.
Welcome to #PHVote 2013.
Today on Rappler, President Aquino says the death toll from Typhoon Haiyan is lower than early estimate 10,000. Thousands of people fight for seats on flights out of Tacloban City. And the government promises it will account for every dollar of international aid pouring in. Hello, I'm Maria Ressa. Welcome to Rappler, your social news network. Day 5 after Super Typhoon Yolanda, international name Haiyan. The official death toll now stands at 2,344, a far cry from initial estimates of 10,000. Bodies are still largely uncollected. International aid is pouring in, but with roads still blocked, basic necessities like food, water, and medicines are not getting to the people who need them. President Benigno Aquino downplays local officials' casualty estimates of 10,000 people killed. In an interview with CNN, Aquino says the actual death toll is lower, about 2,000 to 2,500 people. Speaking to CNN's Christiana Manpur, Aquino says 10,000 is too much. There's emotional trauma involved with that particular estimate. Typhoon Yolanda, the strongest typhoon ever recorded to hit land, decimated large areas of the Visayas. Its worst effects were seen in eastern Visayas, where powerful winds and storm surges of up to 5 meters high leveled entire communities to the ground. Aquino says the local officials who gave the 10,000 death toll figure, quote, did not have basis. He adds, they were too close to the center. The president also blames climate change for the disaster. He says richer nations have a moral responsibility in the climate change debate. On Monday, world nations began talks in Warsaw, Poland to pave the way for a 2015 deal to cut greenhouse gas emissions. Aquino says developed countries who are the biggest contributors to global warming should be more conscious of their decisions that impact the planet. He adds, there has to be a sense of moral responsibility that what they wreak is playing havoc on the lives of so many others incapable of defending themselves. Responding to questions on the government's disaster response, Aquino says local governments were, quote, simply overwhelmed by the force of the typhoon. Aquino adds the collapse of basic services led to the security vacuum that prompted desperate survivors to loot for food. He says the national government speeding up efforts to deliver aid to the victims. On Wednesday, Defense Secretary Voltaire Guzman says the government is now in full control of the security situation in Tacloban. He also says the delivery of relief goods is, quote, has always been good.
When will it get better?
What do you mean? It's not getting worse. It has always been good. The delivery of food and relief came in D+1. Remember the event took place Friday morning up to about 1 o'clock. The following day, Saturday in the afternoon, we had flights from the Philippine Air Force already bringing in relief goods. We have not gotten into all areas, but the plan was for us. We agreed, Secretary Mar, Secretary Dinky Suliman, agreed that we will cover everything, all the 40 municipalities of Leyte tomorrow. And it started this afternoon with the arrival of 9 more trucks from the Philippine Army tomorrow morning that will augment the existing transportation assets we have in Tacloban.
The United Nations says more than 11.3 million people are affected by the super typhoon, with 673,000 people homeless. In the province of Leyte, the government still has no actual figures of the number of the dead, injured, and missing. In Tacloban City, the stench of death fills the air. There is little food and water, and thousands of people fight for seats for flights out of the city. On Tuesday, 8 people were crushed to death after a huge crowd rushed a government rice warehouse in Alang-Alang town, 17 kilometers from Tacloban. Residents asked the Department of Health, or DOH, to collect the dead, they say, to prevent the spread of disease. Health Secretary Enrique Ona admits authorities are struggling to deal with the sheer numbers of the bodies that need to be collected. Speaking to radio station DZMM, he says health workers, quote, delayed the retrieval of bodies because they ran out of body bags. He adds, we hope to speed it up when we get more body bags. In an interview posted on the website of international group Doctors Without Borders, Philippine Emergency Coordinator Dr. Natasha Reyes describes the medical situation in the city. Injuries are relatively minor, cuts, broken bones, head wounds. But after strong winds destroyed most houses and buildings in the city, significant injuries are expected. Injured people converged at the airport where the military provides medical care. Medical facilities are destroyed or damaged. Much of the regional hospital's equipment were washed away. Many among the health staff are also missing. Health Undersecretary Ted Herbosa says Eastern Visayas Medical Center is the only functioning hospital in the city. It is running out of supplies while the hospital staff are near exhaustion. Reyes warns one of the major hazards is tetanus infection. He also says, quote, mental health needs are going to be huge, with reports of people, quote, walking around aimlessly, completely desperate. Herbosa tells Rappler the DOH is sending anti-tetanus vials in small amounts to be administered immediately. The department also asks the National Center for Mental Health and the Philippine Psychiatric Association to provide psychosocial services for survivors. In a statement, ONA says several cargoes of medicine, supplies, and equipment have already reached Tacloban via Cebu and Catbalogan, Samar. As the death toll from Super Typhoon Yolanda rises, more stories emerge from isolated areas. Paterno Esmaquel reports.
In Hernani, Eastern Samar, 67-year-old Antonio Baful wrestled with Super Typhoon Yolanda. This boxer died fighting, but not in the ring. His final enemy, the strongest typhoon in history. His wife Macrina says he died helping people flee Yolanda's fury.
Oo, sa ipiti sa bato. Kaya ang bato, pag hangin, tapos may tubig nga na nahiupod, nahihalo. Kasi ito nga, natumbahiya. Maray na hiya pagkakuan. Kiwa.
Lumaki pong
Maray, kaya natamaan man iya ulo.
Antonio is among thousands killed by the super typhoon. Disaster officials say 2,275 people died, but estimates are much higher. Residents say over a century ago, waves triggered by a typhoon destroyed this church in Hernani, Eastern Samar. Now this has become a mass grave for victims of Super Typhoon Yolanda. In this mass grave, Gregorio Culiarga buries his cousin, Silvano, and Silvano's 2 grandchildren. He says his cousin Dominador is missing, but accepts he is probably dead. The 3 died at the height of Yolanda early Friday. He says their family in Manila knew nothing as of Saturday.
Kaya hindi pa alam ng mga kapatid noon, mga kamag-anak doon, at saka magulang ng mga bata, hindi pa alam yan sa Manila yun. Ganito nangyari kasi walang komunikasyon. Kung po pwede lang ano nyo sa internet, kakalat na yun sa internet.
On Sunday, Borongan resident Norma Abukay rushes to Hernani after hearing about the tragedy. She wanted to check on her parents.
Hinto namin doon sa sa bahay ng mga magulang ko. Wala na yung bahay. Ang ginawa ko, umiyak na lang ako. Sabi ko, nandoon na yung mga magulang ko siguro na nagkandamatay na yan. Wala na akong magagawa. Kung ganun, trahedya yan.
Her mother is found dead while her father is missing. Super Typhoon Yolanda buries real faces, real stories, real dreams. After taking care of their dead, they now face the struggle of living. Paterno es Makel Rappler, Eastern Samar.
The super typhoon shut down the airport in Tacloban City, paralyzing the quickest way for aid workers to reach the hard-hit province of Eastern Samar. But the province is still accessible by land and sea. Buses travel to and from Borongan, Eastern Samar for those who want to visit or leave areas hit by the typhoon. These buses cross the sea from the Visayas to Luzon through the Matnog port in Sorsogon. The trip, though, takes more than 24 hours. But oil shortage, bad roads, and the lack of cell phone signals prevent relief workers from reaching survivors. 5 days after the typhoon hit, details remain sketchy. Provincial data as of Monday show at least 160 people died in Eastern Samar. The province says 44 remain missing, while 2,476 are injured. Survivors of the typhoon need more food and supplies like rice, mineral water, canned goods, noodles, and biscuits. They also need clothes, blankets, toiletries, and medicines. Rapplers compiling and updating a list of relief efforts for the typhoon victims. Take a look at Rappler's list to see how you can help. Every little action counts. If your community is organizing a relief drive, let us know by emailing move.ph@rappler.com. Overseas, Filipino communities across the globe are also organizing fundraisers and other relief initiatives to help survivors. Relief efforts are ongoing in places like the US, the UK, Spain, and Australia. As foreign aid pours into the country in bulk, the national government promises to account for all the donations. Malacanang says it will monitor where the funds will go and ensure they will be used properly. This comes after concerns aid and other supplies might not reach their intended recipients. As of Wednesday, the Department of Foreign Affairs, or DFA, reports 36 foreign governments and agencies informed them of their donations. DFA spokesman Raul Hernandez says the total cash donations reached 3.8 billion pesos or $89 million. The DFA says most of the international aid will not pass through Philippine government agencies. In a press briefing, Hernandez says most international donors, quote, are coursing the money through their aid agencies or through NGOs, charitable institutions, and foundations of their choice. Some donors distribute relief goods directly to the affected communities, while others turn over donations to the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council and the Social Welfare Department. Hernandez also explains why it takes time for monetary donations to be released. He says international aid is, quote, subject to the rules and processes of the donating government agency. International aid agencies are overstretched in responding to 3 crises in the Philippines as Typhoon Yolanda victims continue to wait for help. In a situation report released Monday, the UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, or OCHA, says the capacity and resources of some agencies are, quote, overstretched because they're responding to 2 other humanitarian crises, the Central Visayas earthquake just last month and the Zamboanga City siege in September. On Tuesday, the UN says $301 million is needed to help at least 9.8 million people. Since Sunday, UN partner agencies have been distributing relief assistance to areas hit by the typhoon. Around 13.5 metric tons of high-energy biscuits have been brought to Tacloban to help address the food shortage. While with water supplies in many areas destroyed or contaminated, water system units are deployed to the cities of Tacloban and Ormoc. Sanitation and hygiene resources are also prepared for other affected regions. Bloomberg says losses from Typhoon Yolanda could reach as much as $15 billion or around 650 billion pesos, making this one of the most expensive disasters in Philippine history. Citing an analyst, Bloomberg says the amount is about 5% of the Philippines' gross domestic output. In an Inquirer report, economist and Albay Governor Joey Salceda also says the damage from the typhoon is, quote, a major punch to the fourth quarter GDP. Salceda adds the reconstruction cost from Typhoon Yolanda overlaps with the reconstruction demand from Typhoon Pablo, the Zamboanga siege, and Bohol earthquake earlier this year. Officials earlier said the super typhoon wiped out entire towns in some provinces, making it difficult for government to survey the extent of the damage. The Philippine economy, one of the fastest growing in the region, grew 7.6% in the first half of the year. Before Yolanda struck, officials were confident economic growth could surpass the government's full-year target of 6% to 7%. Let's now look at Rappler's Wrap for today, a list of the 10 most important events around the world you shouldn't miss. At number 5, the U.S. military will deploy amphibious ships to the Philippines to help victims of the super typhoon. This will ferry hundreds of U.S. Marines to the storm-ravaged provinces, along with vehicles able to operate in flooded, debris-strewn areas. The USS Germantown and USS Ashland, amphibious warfare vehicles designed to transport and launch landing craft and vehicles, will depart for the Philippines from the southern Japanese port of Sasebo. And at number 9, Iran blames friction among Western powers for the failure of the Geneva talks that came close to a landmark deal on Iran's nuclear program. Foreign Minister Mohammad Javad Zarif dismisses claims by U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry that Iran balked at the deal in last week's talks. Zarif blames French objections to the draft thrashed out by Tehran and Washington. For the full top 10, visit Rappler.com's The Wrap. Every story on Rappler has a mood meter which gives you 8 emotions to choose from. Click how you feel and your vote comes down to the mood navigator in the middle of the front page that crowdsources the mood of the day. It also gives you the top 10 stories that have affected our readers and viewers the most. These 10 stories over the last 24 hours have gotten the most number of votes in their mood meter, and today all 10 stories have to do with the super typhoon Haiyan or Yolanda. The story that's gotten the most number of votes is this: tormented typhoon victims scour for food, 71% sad. You see 9 of them are completely sad, but one stands out in green. Duterte to latest rescue, shoot looters. Interestingly, this mirrors the frustration people seem to have felt. 57% were happy with that. Ironically, when he came out, Mayor Rodrigo Duterte also said he was just devastated by what he saw. Today, most people are sad. That is Rappler's Newscast for today, Wednesday, November 13th, 2013. Visit Rappler.com and watch our newscast Monday to Friday. Tell us how you feel on our mood meter and help us crowdsource the mood of the day. I'm Maria Ressa. As we say at Rappler, tomorrow begins today.